Jake sees her before she sees him. The girl crouches by the old stone well like she's praying, or maybe just trying not to fall apart. Her dress hangs torn at the sleeve, and dirt cakes under her fingernails like she's been clawing at the earth with her bare hands. The evening light makes everything look wrong, shadows falling in directions that don't match the sun. She looks up when his boots crunch on the gravel. Her eyes are wide and dark, the kind of dark that comes from seeing things you can't unsee. When she speaks, her voice cuts through the air sharp enough to draw blood. "This is where I lost my twin." Jake stops walking. Something about the way she says it makes his chest go tight, makes the hair on his arms stand up like before a storm. He's lived in this town his whole life, worked in his father's saloon since he could barely reach the bar, and he knows trouble when it's staring him in the face. "What do you mean lost?" 3 months ago. Her hands shake as she pushes herself up from the ground. Lily came here asking questions. She never came back. Questions about what? The girl doesn't answer right away. She walks to the edge of the well and peers down into the darkness like she's looking for something specific. The rope hangs still and straight, disappearing into black water below. About the Brennan family. About land that doesn't belong to them anymore. Jake knows that name. Everyone in town knows that name. Sheriff Brennan runs this place like his own private kingdom, has for 20 years. His family owns half the county, and most of the people in it. "You shouldn't be talking about the sheriff like that." "Why not?" She turns to face him, and there's something fierce in her expression now. Something that wasn't there before. "Because he might hurt me too." "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." Jake looks around the clearing, checking for other people, other ears. The well sits alone in a patch of scrubland about a mile from town, surrounded by nothing but prairie grass and silence. Nobody comes out here anymore, not since old Mrs. Henderson died and her property went back to the bank. "What's your name?" "Does it matter?" "It does to me." She studies his face like she's trying to decide whether he can be trusted. "Rose. My name is Rose. I'm Jake. My father runs the saloon in town." "I know who you are." Rose wipes her hands on her dress, leaving streaks of dirt on the faded fabric. "Lily mentioned you. Said you were different from the others." "Different how?" "Said you actually listen when people talk." Jake doesn't know what to say to that. He watches Rose walk around the well's perimeter, her fingers trailing along the stone rim like she's reading something written there. In the dying light, he can see scratch marks in the stone, thin lines that could be from rope or maybe fingernails. "Rose, you need to come into town with me. It's getting dark." "I'm not afraid of the dark." "Maybe you should be." She stops walking and looks at him. "Why?" "Because of what happened to Lily." "Because there are things in this town that don't like questions." "Like Sheriff Brennan." Jake doesn't answer, but his silence says enough. Rose nods like she expected as much. "Lily found something," she says. "Something about his family, about land deals that went bad 20 years ago. She was going to take it to the state police." "Was?" "Before she disappeared." The word hangs between them like smoke. Jake feels something cold settle in his stomach, the kind of cold that comes with knowledge you don't want to have. "How do you know she's not just gone?" "Maybe she left town." Rose laughs, but there's no humor in it. "You think I'd be here digging around this well if I thought she just left town?" "You were digging?" "For 3 days. Ever since I got here." She holds up her hands, showing him the raw skin on her palms, the blood caked under her nails. "I know she's down there. I can feel it." Jake looks at the well again, really looks at it this time. The water below is dark. Darker than it should be, even in the fading light. Something about it makes him want to step back, want to grab Rose's arm and pull her away from the edge. "You can't know that for sure." "I'm her twin." Rose's voice goes quiet, almost a whisper. "I felt it when she died. 3 months ago, middle of the night. I woke up screaming. The air around them goes still, like the world is holding its breath." Jake stares at Rose, at the certainty in her eyes, and feels something shift inside him. He's spent his whole life avoiding trouble, keeping his head down, pouring drinks and pretending not to hear the conversations that happen in dark corners of his father's saloon. But looking at this girl, at the way she stands like she's ready to fight the whole world if she has to, he feels something wake up that's been sleeping for a long time. "Come on," he says. "Let me take you back to town. We'll figure this out." Rose looks down into the well one more time, then nods. But as they walk away, Jake can't shake the feeling that they're leaving something important behind, something that won't stay buried much longer. The saloon's door creaks when Jake pushes it open, the sound cutting through the evening quiet like a warning. Rose follows him inside, her eyes adjusting to the dim light from the oil lamps hanging along the walls. The place smells like whiskey and old wood and something else. Something that might be secrets. Jake's father looks up from behind the bar where he's polishing glasses with the kind of mechanical precision that comes from 40 years of practice. His eyes take in Rose's torn dress, the dirt under her fingernails, the way she holds herself like she's ready to run or fight. Found her out by the Henderson well, Jake says. The old man's hands go still on the glass he's cleaning. That's so. Rose walks to the bar and slides onto a stool without being invited. Whiskey. You got money for whiskey? I've got money. Jake's father pours without another word, sets the glass in front of her with a sound that's too loud in the quiet room. Rose drinks it like water, empties the glass in 2 swallows, and pushes it back across the bar. Another. This time the old man hesitates. Maybe you should eat something first. I don't want food. I want whiskey. Jake sits down beside her, studying her profile in the lamplight. Tell him about Lily. Who's Lily? His father asks, but there's something careful in his voice, like he's stepping around broken glass. Rose takes the second whiskey slower, lets it burn on her tongue before she speaks. My twin sister. She came through this town 3 months ago. Lot of people come through town. Not like Lily. Rose's fingers tighten around the glass. She was asking questions about the Brennan family, about land that used to belong to someone else. The silence that follows is thick enough to choke on. Jake watches his father's face, sees the way his jaw tightens, the way his eyes shift toward the door like he's checking for listeners. Questions about what kind of land, Jake asks. The kind that makes people disappear when they ask too much about it. Jake's father sets down his polishing rag with deliberate care. Miss, I don't know what you think you know about this town, but some stones are better left unturned. Is that what you told my sister? I never talked to your sister. Rose laughs, but it's a bitter sound. Everyone talked to my sister. That was her problem. She couldn't leave things alone. What kind of things? Rose drains the second whiskey and signals for a third. Jake's father hesitates again, then pours. Lily found out about a woman named Sarah Brennan. Died 20 years ago, under what you might call suspicious circumstances. Jake feels something cold settle in his chest. Sarah Brennan, the sheriff's first wife, his father says quietly. She died in an accident. That's what they said. Rose's voice carries an edge sharp enough to cut. But accidents don't usually involve unmarked graves and falsified deeds. The glass in Jake's father's hand stops moving. You need to be very careful what you say about the sheriff. Why? Because he might do to me what he did to Sarah, what he did to Lily. Because some fights you can't win. Rose turns to look at the old man directly, and Jake sees something pass between them, some recognition that makes his skin crawl. You knew her, didn't you? You knew Sarah. Jake's father doesn't answer, but his silence is answer enough. Rose nods like she expected as much. Lily said someone in this town would remember, someone who was here when it happened. I was here, the old man admits. A lot of us were here. A lot of us saw things we probably shouldn't have seen. But nobody said anything. Nobody wanted to end up like Sarah. The words hang in the air between them like smoke. Jake looks back and forth between Rose and his father, feeling like he's watching a conversation in a language he doesn't quite understand. What happened to Sarah? He asks. His father and Rose both look at him, and Jake realizes that asking the question has changed something, crossed some line he didn't know existed. She found out about the land deals, Rose says, about how Sheriff Brennan was selling protected territory to mining companies, falsifying documents, burying the evidence in more ways than one. She was going to the federal authorities. Jake's father adds quietly, had all the paperwork, all the proof. And then she had an accident. Fell down the well at the old Henderson place, broke her neck. Rose's glass stops halfway to her lips. The same well where I found these. She reaches into her pocket and pulls out something small and dark. When she opens her palm, Jake sees a piece of blue fabric, torn and stained with what might be blood. And this. She pulls out something else, something that catches the lamplight and throws it back in tiny fragments. A gold earring, Simple and small, with a clasp that's been broken. Jake's father stares at the earring like he's seen a ghost. That's Sarah's. No, Rose says quietly. It's Lily's. Sarah's daughter gave it to her before she died. The daughter who's been looking for the truth ever since. The silence that follows is absolute. Jake feels the world shift around him, feels pieces of a puzzle clicking into place in ways that make his chest tight with fear. He looks at Rose, really looks at her, and sees something in her eyes that wasn't there before. You're Sarah's daughter. Rose finishes her whiskey and sets the glass down with a sound like a gunshot. One of them. The door slams open just as the first light of dawn creeps through the saloon windows. Sheriff Brennan fills the doorway like a storm cloud, his badge catching the early sun and throwing light across the room in sharp angles. Jake feels his blood turn to ice water in his veins. Heard there's a disturbed girl in here making wild accusations. Jake's father freezes, his hands going perfectly still on the glass he's been cleaning since before sunrise. The silence stretches tight as a wire between them all, broken only by the sound of Rose setting down her coffee cup with deliberate care. Define disturbed, she says without turning around. Brennan's boots echo on the wooden floor as he walks closer. Girl who shows up in town talking crazy about things that never happened. Girl who needs to learn when to keep her mouth shut. Rose turns on her stool to face him, and Jake sees something in her expression that makes his chest tighten. No fear, just cold, hard certainty. You talking about me, Sheriff? Depends. You the one telling stories about my family? I don't tell stories. I tell the truth. Brennan laughs, but there's no humor in it. Truth is a dangerous word around here, girl, especially when it comes out of the mouth of someone who don't belong. I belong here more than you think. Jake watches his father's knuckles go white around the glass. The old man's eyes dart between Rose and the sheriff like he's watching a fuse burn toward dynamite. That's so. Brennan's hand rests on his gun belt, fingers drumming against the leather. And why would that be? Because my mother is buried in your family plot. The words hit the room like a physical blow. Jake feels the air go thin, feels something shift in the space between them all. His father's glass slips from his hands and shatters on the floor behind the bar. Brennan's eyes narrow to slits. Your mother. Sarah Brennan, your first wife, the one who fell down the well 20 years ago. Sarah died in an accident. Sarah was murdered. Rose's voice stays level, controlled, but Jake can see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands have formed fists in her lap. Just like my sister was murdered 3 months ago. Your sister. Brennan takes another step closer. That would be the girl who came around asking questions she shouldn't have been asking. Her name was Lily, and she found the deed papers you thought you destroyed. Jake watches color drain from the sheriff's face. For the first time since he walked in, Brennan looks genuinely surprised. I don't know what you're talking about. The Henderson property. The mineral rights you sold to Consolidated Mining in 1985. The federal land you transferred illegally through forged documents. Rose stands up from her stool, and despite being half Brennan's size, something about her presence makes the big man take a step back. The graves you dug to hide the evidence. Graves? 3 of them. On the north corner of what used to be Henderson land, before you stole it. Rose's voice cuts through the morning air like a blade. Sarah found the bodies. That's why she had to die. Brennan's hand moves to his gun. You're talking crazy. Am I? Then why don't we take a ride out to your property, Sheriff? Why don't we bring some shovels and see what we dig up? That's enough. Jake's father speaks for the first time since Brennan arrived, his voice hoarse and shaking. Rose, you need to stop. Stop what? Telling the truth. Stop before you get yourself killed. The words hang in the air like smoke. Jake looks at his father, sees fear written across every line of his face, and understands that the old man knows more than he's been saying. You were there, weren't you? Rose turns to face Jake's father. The night Sarah died, you saw what really happened. Jake's father won't meet her eyes. I didn't see nothing. Because he told you not to see it. Rose jerks her head toward Brennan. Because he made sure everyone in this town understood what would happen if they saw too much. Smart town, Brennan says quietly. People here know how to mind their own business. People here know how to stay alive. Same thing. Rose laughs, and the sound makes Jake's skin crawl. For 20 years, maybe. But secrets have a way of coming back to the surface, Sheriff. Just like bodies. Brennan's gun clears leather in one smooth motion, the barrel pointing directly at Rose's chest. Jake's father gasps, drops his cleaning rag, but Rose doesn't even blink. "You threatening me, girl?" "I'm promising you." Rose's voice stays steady despite the gun aimed at her heart. "Lily found your mother's journal. Sarah kept records of everything. Every illegal sale, every forged document, every grave you thought you hid well enough. Where is it?" "Safe, along with the photographs Lily took of the burial site and copies of all the original deed papers." Jake watches sweat break out on Brennan's forehead. The gun wavers slightly in his grip. "You're bluffing." "Try me." The silence stretches between them, tight enough to snap. Jake can hear his own heartbeat, can smell the fierce sweat rolling off his father, can feel the weight of 20 years' worth of buried secrets pressing down on the room like a physical thing. Finally, Brennan lowers his gun but doesn't holster it. "Even if what you're saying is true, which it ain't, you got no proof of nothing. Just the word of a dead woman and her crazy daughters." "Daughter," Rose corrects. "Lily's dead too, but I'm still here. For now." "Is that a threat?" "Sheriff?" Brennan's smile is cold enough to freeze blood. "It's a fact. This town has a way of dealing with troublemakers. Always has." Rose stands up, moves closer to Brennan until she's close enough to touch the barrel of his gun. "Then you better make sure you do it right the first time. Because if you don't, those photographs and that journal are going straight to the federal authorities." "Where are they?" "Kill me and find out." Brennan stares at her for a long moment, and Jake can see the calculation happening behind his eyes. Finally, the sheriff holsters his weapon and heads for the door. "You got 24 hours to get out of my town, girl. After that, I can't guarantee your safety." "I'm not going anywhere until I find my sister's body." Brennan stops with his hand on the door handle. "Then I guess we'll see how much you really look like your mother." The door slams behind him, leaving the three of them alone with the morning light and the weight of everything that's been said. Jake looks at Rose, sees her hands shaking now that the adrenaline is wearing off, and knows that nothing in this town will ever be the same. Rose is already putting on her jacket when Jake turns around from watching Brennan's retreating figure through the window. Her hands move with purpose, checking pockets, smoothing down fabric like she's preparing for battle. "Where are you going?" "Back to the well. You're coming with me." Jake looks at his father, who's still picking up pieces of broken glass from behind the bar. The old man won't meet his eyes. "Maybe that's not such a good idea." "Why?" "Because the sheriff told you to mind your own business? Because people who cross Brennan end up dead." Rose stops what she's doing and looks directly at Jake. "People who don't cross him end up dead too. At least this way we fight back." Jake's father drops another piece of glass into the trash bin. The sound echoes in the quiet room like a gunshot. "Son, you don't understand what you're getting into." "Then explain it to me." "I can't." "Won't." Same thing. Rose walks to the door and stops with her hand on the handle. "I'm going with or without you, Jake. But if you want to know what really happened to your town, what's been rotting it from the inside for 20 years, then you'll come." Jake looks back and forth between Rose and his father, feeling like he's standing at the edge of a cliff. Everything in his life has been safe. Predictable, quiet, pour drinks, clean glasses, mind his own business. But looking at Rose, at the determination in her eyes, he realizes that safety might just be another word for cowardice. "Dad, I'll be back before dark." His father doesn't answer, just keeps cleaning up broken glass like his life depends on it. The walk to the well takes them through scrubland that shimmers in the midday heat. Rose moves like she knows every step, every stone, every shadow. Jake follows, feeling sweat gather under his shirt, feeling something heavy settle in his chest. "Tell me about the photographs." "What photographs?" "You told Brennan that Lily took photographs of the burial site." Rose doesn't slow down. "She did. 3 graves, just like I said. Fresh enough that the earth was still soft." "Fresh? How fresh?" "Recent. Within the last 5 years." Jake feels his stomach drop. "Who's buried there?" "People who asked the wrong questions. People who saw the wrong things. People who got in Brennan's way." They reach the well as the sun hits its highest point. In the harsh daylight, everything looks different than it did in the evening shadows. The stone rim shows wear from decades of rope friction, but there are other marks too. Scratches that cut deeper, that follow patterns that make Jake's skin crawl. Rose runs her fingers along the stone. "Look at these." Jake moves closer. The marks are thin, parallel, clustered in groups of 4 and 5, like fingernails, like someone was clawing at the stone from the inside, trying to climb out. Jesus. Gets worse. Rose points to the rope hanging down into the darkness, about halfway down its length. A piece of blue fabric flutters in the breeze, the same color as the scrap she showed them in the saloon. That's from Lily's dress? She was wearing it the day she disappeared. I helped her pick it out. Jake stares at the fabric, feeling something cold crawl up his spine. She was down there. She's still down there. The words hang between them like smoke. Jake looks into the well, into water so dark it might as well be oil. There's something wrong with it, something that makes his eyes water and his throat close up. The water's not right. No, it's not. Rose unties the rope from its anchor post. Help me lower the bucket. Rose, I don't think we should. We have to. We have to know for sure. Jake takes hold of the rope with hands that won't stop shaking. Together, they feed it down into the darkness, feeling the weight of the bucket as it hits water far below. The sound echoes wrong, like it's coming from somewhere deeper than it should be. Pull it up. They haul on the rope, hand over hand, the bucket growing heavier with each foot they raise it. When it finally clears the rim, Jake expects to see water. Instead, the bucket is almost empty, except for a few inches of liquid so dark it looks like blood. And something else, something small and gold that catches the sunlight and throws it back in fragments. Rose's hands go to her mouth. Oh God, what is it? Rose reaches into the bucket with trembling fingers and pulls out a single gold earring. Simple, elegant, with a clasp that's been broken clean through. It's Lily's. Her voice breaks on the words. Our mother gave them to us before she died. Sarah made them herself. From her wedding ring, after she found out what Brennan really was. Jake stares at the earring, at the way Rose holds it, like it's made of glass, like it might disappear if she's not careful enough. She was wearing it when she died. Both of them, the other one still down there with her. How do you know? Because Lily never took them off. Never. She said they were the only thing we had left of our mother. Rose closes her fist around the earring and looks back down into the well. Tears stream down her cheeks, but her voice stays steady. She came here to find the truth about what happened to Sarah. Instead, she found out what was going to happen to her. Jake feels the weight of understanding settle on him like stones. Brennan killed them both and buried the evidence where no one would ever think to look. In the well. In the place where our mother died, where she's been waiting for 20 years for someone to find her. Jake looks at the scratch marks on the stone rim again, sees them differently now, not just claw marks, messages, proof of struggle, of fight, of refusal to go quietly into the darkness. What do we do now? Rose wipes her eyes and puts the earring carefully in her pocket. We get them out. We give them proper burials. We make sure everyone knows what Brennan did. He'll kill us. Probably. Rose looks at Jake with eyes that have seen too much death, too much pain, but still hold something that might be hope. But some things are worth dying for. Like what? Like making sure the people you love don't disappear without a trace. Like making sure their stories get told. She touches her pocket where the earring rests. Like making sure their murders mean something. Jake nods, feeling something shift inside him, something that might be courage, or might just be the inability to walk away from the truth once you've seen it. How do we get them out? Rose looks back at the well, at the dark water below, at the rope that's become a lifeline to the dead. Very carefully and very soon, because Brennan's going to figure out that we're not backing down, and when he does, he's going to try to bury us down there with them. The sun beats down on their backs as they stand at the edge of 20 years' worth of secrets, holding a piece of gold that connects the living to the dead, the truth to the lies, the past to whatever comes next. The saloon is dark when they get back, shadows pooling in corners where the evening light can't reach. Jake's father sits behind the bar with a half-empty bottle of whiskey and a glass that's seen too many refills. He doesn't look up when they walk in. Find what you were looking for? Jake pulls the earring from his pocket and sets it on the bar between them. The gold catches what little light filters through the windows, throwing tiny reflections across the worn wood. His father stares at it like it's a snake ready to strike. Where did you get that? The well. Same place Lily got thrown after asking too many questions. You don't know that. Then tell me what I do know. Jake slides onto a stool across from his father. Tell me about the night 3 months ago when a girl came in here asking about Sarah Brennan. The old man's hand tightens around his glass. I told you, I never talked to your sister. You're lying. Rose's voice cuts through the dim space like a blade. And we both know it. Jake's father finally looks up, and Jake can see 20 years of carefully buried secrets written across every line of his face. Some conversations are better forgotten. Not this one. Especially this one. Jake reaches across the bar and takes the whiskey bottle. He pours himself a drink, something he's never done in front of his father before, and downs it in one swallow. The burn feels like courage. Dad, I found scratch marks on that well. Fingernail marks. I found a piece of fabric that matches the dress Lily was wearing when she disappeared. Jake's voice stays steady despite the fire in his chest. Now I find her earring at the bottom of 20 feet of water that's so dark it looks like blood. So you can either tell me what you know, or I can walk out that door right now and never come back. The silence stretches between them like a wire pulled too tight. Finally, Jake's father refills his glass and drinks half of it before he speaks. She came in on a Tuesday night, late, around closing time. Lily. Said her name was Lily Brennan. Said she was Sarah's daughter. Rose makes a sound like she's been punched. She used his name. Figured it would get people talking. And it did. Jake's father drains his glass and immediately refills it. Girl had fire in her, just like her mother. Same eyes, same way of looking at you, like she could see straight through to your soul. What did she want to know? Everything. About the night Sarah died, about the land deals, about the people who disappeared after asking the wrong questions. The old man's hands shake as he lifts the glass to his lips. About the graves. Jake feels the room tilt slightly around him. You knew about the graves. I helped dig them. The words hit the air like a physical blow. Rose goes perfectly still, her breathing shallow and quick. Jake stares at his father and feels everything he thought he knew about the man crumble into dust. You what? Brennan said it was cleanup, said there'd been accidents. People who got themselves into trouble they couldn't get out of. Said we were doing the town a favor, keeping things quiet. Jake's father laughs, but there's no humor in it. I was young and stupid and scared. He had a badge and a gun and a way of making you believe that what he wanted was the same thing as what was right. How many? 3, over the years. People who asked too many questions or saw too many things or just got in his way. Rose's voice comes out as barely a whisper. Was my mother one of them? Jake's father looks at her with eyes full of something that might be shame or might just be exhaustion. Sarah was the first, 20 years ago. She found out about the mining deals, about the falsified deeds. She was going to take it to the federal authorities. So he killed her, made it look like an accident. Told everyone she fell down the well, broke her neck on the way down. The old man pours another drink with hands that won't stay steady. But there were marks on her throat. Finger marks, and her clothes were torn in ways that didn't match a fall. You saw the body. I helped pull her out. Brennan said we had to make sure the story matched what people expected to see. Jake feels sick. Dad, you were part of a cover-up. I was part of staying alive. You don't understand what this town was like back then. Brennan owned everything and everyone. Cross him, and you disappeared. Simple as that. So when Lily came asking questions, I told her the same thing I'm telling you now. Some stones are better left unturned. Rose leans forward, her knuckles white where they grip the edge of the bar. But she didn't listen. No. She had her mother's stubbornness. Said she wasn't leaving town until she found proof of what really happened. Jake's father's voice drops to barely above a whisper. Said she'd already found some of it. What kind of proof? Documents, photographs, Sarah's journal. The old man looks directly at Rose. Your mother kept records of everything, girl. Every illegal transaction, every falsified deed, every person who went missing after crossing the sheriff. Lily found it all. Where? Hidden in the old Henderson house. Sarah stashed it there before she died. Probably figured someone would come looking for it eventually. Jake feels pieces clicking together in his mind. That's why Brennan wanted the Henderson property, not for mining rights, to find Sarah's evidence and destroy it. But Lily got there first. Rose's eyes are bright with unshed tears. What happened the night she disappeared? Jake's father finishes his whiskey and sets the glass down with shaking hands. Brennan came in here around midnight, said there'd been another accident, said the uppity girl who'd been asking questions had gotten herself into trouble. What kind of trouble? The permanent kind. Said she'd fallen down the same well as her mother. Said it was tragic, but some people just don't learn from history. The old man looks up at Jake with eyes full of pain. Said if anyone came asking about her, I should tell them she'd left town, gone back where she came from. But you knew better. I knew she was at the bottom of that well with her mother. I knew Brennan had made sure she'd never tell anyone what she'd found. Jake's father reaches for the bottle again, but his hands are shaking too badly to pour. And I knew that if I said anything about it, I'd be joining them down there. Jake takes the bottle from his father's hands and sets it on the shelf behind the bar. Not anymore. Son, you don't understand what you're up against. I understand enough. Jake looks at Rose, sees the determination in her eyes, the way she holds herself like she's ready for war. I understand that some things are more important than staying safe. Like what? Like making sure the dead get justice. Like making sure their stories don't die with them. Jake stands up, feeling something solid settle in his chest, something that might be purpose. Like making sure Brennan pays for what he's done. His father stares at him with eyes full of fear and something that might be pride. He'll kill you both. Maybe, but at least we'll die fighting. Rose stands up from her stool and walks to the window, her reflection ghost-like in the dark glass. When she speaks, her voice carries a weight that makes the air in the saloon feel thick and hard to breathe. There's more you need to know. About why I came here. About who Lily and I really are. Jake watches her shoulders tense, sees the way her hands shake as she touches the window frame. You said you were Sarah's daughters. Sarah Brennan's daughters, not just Sarah. Brennan. Rose turns to face them, and Jake can see tears streaming down her cheeks. He's our father. The words hit the room like a physical blow. Jake's father drops his glass, and it shatters on the floor behind the bar. The sound echoes in the sudden silence, sharp and final. Your father. The man who murdered our mother is our father. The man who threw my twin sister down a well is our father. Rose's voice breaks on the last word, but she keeps talking. The man who's been hunting us our whole lives is our father. Jake feels the room spin around him. Rose, that's impossible. Is it? Look at me, Jake. Really look at me. She steps into the lamplight, and for the first time, Jake sees it. The strong jaw, the cold eyes, the way she holds herself like she owns whatever space she's standing in. I have his face. Lily had it too. Jake's father is picking up pieces of broken glass with hands that won't stay steady. How long have you known? Since we were old enough to understand why our mother used to cry when she looked at us. Since we were old enough to see pictures of the man she married and recognize our own faces staring back. Rose sits down heavily, like the weight of the story is too much to carry standing up. She told us everything before she died, about the land deals, about the people who disappeared, about why she had to run. Sarah ran? As far and as fast as she could, but you can't run from a man with a badge and connections that reach into every law enforcement agency in 3 counties. Rose wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. He found her 6 months after we were born, told her she could come back and play the good wife, or he could make us all disappear. Jake stares at her. So she went back. She went back to protect us, spent 4 years gathering evidence, building a case, waiting for the right moment to bring him down. Rose's voice hardens, but he was watching her too closely. She knew he suspected, knew he was getting ready to silence her permanently. That's when she hid the documents. In the old Henderson house, she made multiple copies of everything, stashed them in different places, figured if something happened to her, someone would eventually find the proof. Rose looks directly at Jake's father. She trusted the wrong people. The old man flinches like he's been slapped. Sarah asked me to help her get you girls out of town, said she had evidence that would put Brennan away forever. But you told him instead. I was scared. He had ways of making people disappear, ways of making it look like accidents. I thought if I gave him what he wanted, he'd let her live. Instead, you gave him the location of one of the evidence caches. Jake's father nods, unable to meet anyone's eyes. He made me show him where she'd hidden the documents, burned them right there in front of me. Then he went home and killed his wife. Rose's hands formed fists in her lap, made it look like she fell down the well. But not before he made sure we understood that we'd never be safe, never be free, as long as we had his blood in our veins. What happened to you and Lily after that? Foster care, different families, different towns. Brennan made sure we were split up, made sure we couldn't corroborate each other's stories, told the social workers our mother had been mentally unstable, that we'd been traumatized by her death and couldn't be trusted to tell fact from fantasy. Jake feels sick. He destroyed your whole family. He tried to, but Lily and I found each other again when we turned 18, started comparing notes, started putting the pieces together, started planning. Planning what? Rose looks up at him with eyes that burn with 20 years of accumulated rage. Revenge, justice, call it whatever you want. We were going to bring him down, but Lily came alone. She insisted, said it was too dangerous for both of us to be in the same place, said if something happened to her, I'd still be alive to finish what we started. Rose's voice cracks. I should have fought her harder, should have made her wait. Jake's father finally stops cleaning up glass and looks at Rose directly. She found more than just the documents, didn't she? She found the graves, 3 of them, just like she told you, fresh enough that she could tell they'd been dug recently. She took photographs, soil samples, measurements, everything you'd need for a federal investigation. And Brennan found out. He was watching her from the moment she arrived in town, probably knew who she was the second she walked into your saloon. Rose stands up and starts pacing, energy radiating from her like heat from a fire. But she was smart. She hid everything before he got to her. Multiple locations, multiple copies, just like our mother taught us. Jake feels something cold settle in his chest. Rose, where are the documents now? Safe. Along with Lily's photographs and her detailed notes about everything she discovered. Rose stops pacing and looks directly at him. But they won't stay safe forever. Brennan's looking for them. And he's got resources I don't have. What kind of resources? Money, connections, people who owe him favors. Rose's voice drops to barely above a whisper. And he knows I'm here now. Knows I'm asking the same questions Lily was asking. Jake's father finally speaks up. You can't win this fight, girl. Not against him. Not with what he's got backing him. Maybe not, but I can make sure the truth comes out. I can make sure people know what he did to my mother, what he did to my sister. Rose touches her pocket where Lily's earring rests. I can make sure their deaths mean something, even if it costs you your life, especially if it costs me my life. Rose looks out the window again at the darkness pressing against the glass. You know what the worst part is? Growing up knowing that the man who gave you life is the same man who destroyed everything you ever loved. Growing up knowing that half of everything you are comes from pure evil. Jake stands up and moves toward her. Rose, you're not evil. What your father did, what he is, that's not who you are. Isn't it? Look at me, Jake. Look at what I'm planning to do to him. Rose turns from the window, and Jake can see something in her eyes that makes his blood run cold. I'm going to destroy him the same way he destroyed my family, slowly, completely, without mercy. That's not evil. That's justice. Is there a difference? Jake doesn't have an answer for that. He looks at Rose, at the way the lamplight throws shadows across her face, and realizes that she's become something more dangerous than Brennan ever was. She's become someone with nothing left to lose. What do you need from me? Rose smiles, and for the first time since he met her, it reaches her eyes. Help me get my sister's body out of that well. Help me give her a proper burial. Help me make sure the world knows who killed her and why. And then we finish what Lily started. We bring down our father. The sound of boots on the saloon's wooden steps comes just after midnight. Heavy, deliberate, the kind of steps that announce authority and expect submission. Jake feels his heart hammer against his ribs as he looks across the bar at Rose, who sits perfectly still with her hands folded in her lap like she's been expecting this moment her whole life. 3 of them, his father whispers from behind the bar, peering through a crack in the window blind. Plus Brennan. Let them come. Jake's father turns to stare at Rose. Girl, you don't understand what you're up against. I understand perfectly. Rose stands up and smooths down her dress, the same torn dress she's been wearing since Jake found her by the well. I've been waiting for this conversation my entire life. The door explodes inward without a knock, without a warning. Sheriff Brennan fills the doorway like a storm cloud, his badge catching the lamplight and throwing it back in harsh angles. Behind him stand 3 deputies, hands resting on their gun belts, faces set in the kind of blank expressions that come from following orders without asking questions. "Evening, folks." Brennan's voice carries the false friendliness of a snake before it strikes. "Sorry to disturb you so late, but we've got ourselves a situation that needs immediate attention." Jake stays seated, but feels his muscles coil tight. "What kind of situation, Sheriff?" "The kind that involves disturbed individuals making wild accusations against upstanding members of the community." Brennan's eyes never leave Rose's face. "Got reports that there's a mentally unstable young woman in here spreading dangerous lies." Rose laughs, and the sound cuts through the tense air like broken glass. Dangerous to who? To herself, mainly. To the good people of this town who might believe her fantasies. Brennan takes a step closer, and Jake can smell whiskey on his breath, can see the sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool night air. "See, we've dealt with this kind of thing before. Girls who get confused about reality, who start believing their own stories." "Stories about what?" "About things that never happened, about people who never existed, about accidents that get turned into murders by overactive imaginations." Jake's father moves slowly along the bar, his hand disappearing beneath the counter where Jake knows he keeps a shotgun for emergencies. "Sheriff, maybe you should come back in the morning when everyone's thinking more clearly." "Can't do that, I'm afraid. See, this young lady is clearly suffering from some kind of mental breakdown, for her own safety and the safety of others. She needs to be taken somewhere she can get proper care." "What kind of care?" Rose asks, her voice steady as stone. "The kind that helps people forget about things that are better left forgotten." Jake feels something cold settle in his chest. "You mean the kind that makes people disappear?" Brennan's smile doesn't reach his eyes. "Now, why would you say something like that, son? We're talking about proper medical treatment, nothing more." Rose takes a step forward, and Jake can see something burning in her eyes, something that makes the air around her feel electric. "The same kind of treatment you gave my mother? The same kind you gave my sister?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" Rose reaches into her pocket and pulls out the gold earring they found in the well. It catches the lamplight and throws tiny reflections across the room. "Because this belonged to Lily, the sister you murdered 3 months ago." Brennan's face goes pale, but his voice stays level. "That could be anyone's earring." "Could be, except for the inscription on the back, the one that says, 'For Hell, from Mother, with all my love, S.B.' Rose turns the earring over, showing them tiny letters etched into the gold. "Sarah Brennan, my mother, your first wife." One of the deputies shifts uncomfortably. "Sheriff, maybe we should—" "Shut up." Brennan's voice cracks like a whip. The girl is clearly delusional, probably planted that earring herself. "What about this?" Jake's father emerges from behind the bar, holding a piece of blue fabric, the same fabric they found caught on the well rope. "This came off Lily's dress. The dress she was wearing when you threw her down that well." "Prove it." "We can." Rose's smile is sharp enough to cut. "Along with everything else." Brennan goes perfectly still. "Everything else?" Jake stands up and walks to the bar where his father waits. Together, they reach beneath the counter and pull out something wrapped in oiled cloth, something thick and heavy that makes a solid sound when Jake sets it on the bar. "Lily was smarter than you thought," Jake says, unwrapping the cloth to reveal a leather-bound journal, its pages yellow with age. "She found this before she died, hid it here in the saloon where she knew someone would eventually look for it." Brennan stares at the journal like it's a loaded gun pointed at his heart. "What is that?" 20 years of evidence." Rose moves to stand beside Jake, her hand resting on the journal's cover. "My mother's records, every illegal land sale, every falsified deed, every person who disappeared after asking the wrong questions." "That's impossible." "Is it? Open it and see." Rose flips the journal open to a random page and begins to read. March 15th, 1985. Sheriff approached Henderson about selling mineral rights to Consolidated Mining. When Henderson refused, Sheriff threatened to have his property condemned for tax violations. Henderson found dead 2 weeks later. Apparent suicide. Jake's father nods grimly. "I remember Henderson. Good man. Never seemed like the type to take his own life." Rose turns more pages. June 3rd, 1987. Mary Castellanos came forward with information about falsified mining permits. Sheriff visited her home that evening. Mary disappeared the following morning. Her car was found at the bottom of Miller's Creek. One of the deputies takes a step back. "Sheriff, I think maybe." I said, "Shut up." Brennan's hand moves to his gun, but he doesn't draw it. Not yet. That journal doesn't prove anything. Could be completely fabricated. Could be. Rose continues reading. October 12th, 1989. Sheriff sold 2,400 acres of protected federal land to mining consortium using forged environmental impact statements. Buried original documentation in unmarked graves on north corner of Henderson property. The silence that follows is absolute. Jake can hear his own heartbeat, can smell the fierce sweat rolling off the deputies, can feel the weight of 20 years' worth of buried secrets pressing down on the room like a physical thing. "She knew where you buried the evidence," Jake says quietly. "She knew about the graves. And she knew about the people you put in them." Rose's voice carries the weight of absolute certainty. 3 bodies. Thomas Mitchell, who found out about the illegal sales. Elena Rodriguez, who tried to report you to federal authorities. And David Kim, who threatened to go to the newspapers. Brennan's face has gone gray. "You can't prove any of that." "Can't we?" Rose pulls a manila envelope from behind the journal. Lily took photographs, soil samples, GPS coordinates, everything a federal investigation would need to dig up your victims and match them to the missing persons reports you buried along with their bodies. Jake watches as the sheriff's careful mask finally cracks completely. The man who has controlled this town through fear and violence for 20 years suddenly looks old, diminished, trapped. "Where are the originals?" Brennan's voice comes out as barely a whisper. "Safe, along with copies sent to the FBI field office, the state attorney general, and 3 different newspapers." Rose closes the journal and holds it against her chest like armor. "Kill me tonight, and those copies get released tomorrow morning." "You're bluffing." "Am I? You want to bet your life on it?" Brennan looks around the room, at his deputies who are now staring at him with expressions that range from fear to disgust, at Jake's father who holds a shotgun with steady hands, at Jake himself who stands ready to fight. "What do you want?" "Justice. For my mother, for my sister, for everyone you've murdered to protect your secrets." Rose's eyes burn with 20 years of accumulated rage. "I want you to confess. I want you to tell the world what you've done. And if I don't, then tomorrow morning, every newspaper in 3 states runs the story. Every law enforcement agency gets copies of the evidence. Every victim's family finally learns the truth about what happened to their loved ones." Rose steps closer to Brennan, close enough that Jake can see her father's features reflected in her face. "And you spend whatever's left of your life in a federal prison, thinking about all the ghosts you created." Brennan stares at his daughter for a long moment, and Jake can see the calculation happening behind his eyes. Finally, the sheriff's shoulders slump in defeat. "You want a confession? Fine, but not here, not in front of them." He gestures at his deputies. "Just you and me, father to daughter." Rose smiles, and there's nothing warm in it. "I was hoping you'd say that." The walk to the well happens in silence. 4 figures moving through the darkness, like ghosts returning to haunt the living. Rose leads the way, Sarah's journal clutched against her chest, while Brennan follows with his hands cuffed behind his back. Jake and his father bring up the rear, the shotgun a solid weight in the older man's arms. The moon is full tonight, casting everything in silver light that makes the shadows look deeper and the stone well seem to glow like bone. Rose stops at the edge of the clearing and turns to face the man who murdered her family. "This is where it happened." Brennan's voice comes out hoarse and broken. "Rose, you don't have to do this." "Don't I? This is where you threw my mother down 20 years ago. This is where you threw my sister 3 months ago." Rose's voice carries across the night air like a blade. "This is where you thought you could bury the truth forever." "I never meant for any of this to happen." "Didn't you?" Rose walks to the well's edge and peers down into the darkness. "You planned every step, every murder, every cover-up." Jake moves closer, keeping his eyes on Brennan's cuffed hands. "Tell her about Sarah. Tell her what really happened that night." Brennan's shoulders slump like a man carrying the weight of the world. "Your mother was going to destroy everything. 20 years of work, 20 years of building something that mattered." "Building what? A criminal empire?" building a future for this town, for the people in it. The mining money brought jobs, brought prosperity. Your mother would have ruined all of that with her self-righteous crusade. Rose laughs, and the sound echoes off the stone walls of the well like broken bells. Self-righteous. She was trying to save federal land from illegal destruction. She was trying to save dirt and rocks while people in this town went hungry. So you killed her for it. I tried to reason with her first, tried to make her see that some things are more important than following every letter of every law. Brennan's voice takes on a pleading quality that makes Jake's skin crawl. But she wouldn't listen, kept pushing, kept gathering evidence, kept threatening to go to the federal authorities. Rose opens the journal and begins reading in the moonlight. October 30th, 1994. Sheriff became violent when I refused to give him the location of the document cache. Hit me twice before I managed to get away. I know he's planning something. If anything happens to me, someone needs to know the truth. She was afraid of you. She should have been. Tell me about the night she died. Brennan looks up at the stars, and Jake can see tears streaming down his weathered face. She called me, said she wanted to meet, said she had a proposal that would benefit everyone. But you knew better. I knew she was planning to run, had the twins packed and ready, probably figured she could disappear with the evidence and surface somewhere safe. Brennan's voice drops to barely above a whisper. I couldn't let that happen. Rose walks around the well's perimeter, her fingers trailing along the stone rim. So you came here with rope and lies. I came here hoping to change her mind one last time, to make her see reason. And when she wouldn't, I did what I had to do. The words hang in the air like smoke. Jake feels something cold settle in his chest as he watches Rose stop walking, her hand resting on a section of stone that shows deep scratch marks. These are from her fingernails, Rose says quietly. She fought you. Even at the end, she fought. Yes. Tell me about Lily. Tell me about what you did to my sister. Brennan closes his eyes. She was just like Sarah, same stubborn streak, same inability to leave well enough alone. She was looking for the truth about our mother's death. She was looking to destroy me, just like Sarah tried to do. Rose moves back to face Brennan directly. So you killed her too. She left me no choice. Found the document cache, took photographs of the burial site, threatened to expose everything unless I confessed publicly. Brennan opens his eyes and looks at Rose with an expression that might be regret or might just be exhaustion. I tried to reason with her, same as I tried with your mother. But she wouldn't listen either. No, she said she'd rather die than let me get away with what I'd done. So you granted her wish. I gave her what she asked for. Rose nods like she expected exactly that answer. How did you do it? How did you get her down there? Brennan's voice becomes mechanical, emotionless, like he's reading from a report. Told her I wanted to show her where Sarah really died. Brought her out here at night. Said I was ready to confess everything. When she leaned over to look into the well, I pushed her. Was she still alive when she hit the water? I don't know. I hope not. Rose opens the journal again and flips through pages until she finds what she's looking for. Here's what my mother wrote about you. The man I married doesn't exist anymore. He's been replaced by something cold and calculating, something that sees people as obstacles to be removed rather than lives to be protected. I loved him once, but that man is gone. What's left is just a monster wearing his face. Brennan flinches like he's been slapped. Sarah always was good with words. She was good with truth, something you never learned to appreciate. Jake watches as Rose closes the journal and holds it out over the well. This is where it all started, where you thought you could bury the evidence of what you'd become. What are you doing? What should have been done 20 years ago? Rose drops the journal into the well. It falls through the moonlight like a stone, disappearing into the darkness below with a splash that echoes off the walls. Brennan lunges forward. No, that's the only copy. No, it's not. Rose's smile is sharp enough to cut glass. That was a reproduction. The original is safely locked away, along with all the other evidence Lily gathered. Jake sees Brennan's face change, sees the moment when desperation turns into rage. The sheriff spins around, his cuffed hand somehow producing a small pistol from his boot, the barrel swinging toward Rose with deadly intent. You think you're so smart? You think you've won? Jake's father's shotgun booms across the clearing, the sound rolling across the landscape like thunder. Brennan staggers backward, his gun flying from his hands, his chest blossoming red in the moonlight. "Some stones should stay turned over," the old man says quietly, smoke drifting from the shotgun's barrel. Brennan falls to his knees at the edge of the well, blood spreading across his shirt, his breath coming in short gasps. "You don't understand what you've done. The people I worked with, the connections I had, they won't let this end here." Rose kneels down beside him, her voice soft but implacable. "Then I guess we'll deal with them too, one by one if we have to. You're just like your mother, self-righteous, stubborn. I'm exactly like my mother, and that's what terrifies you." Brennan looks up at Rose with eyes that are already growing dim. "What are you going to do now?" "I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did. I'm going to make sure the families of your victims finally get answers. I'm going to make sure Sarah and Lily get the justice they deserved." Rose reaches into her pocket and pulls out Lily's gold earring, holding it up so it catches the moonlight. "And then I'm going to give them both proper burials, in ground that isn't cursed by your presence." Brennan's laugh turns into a cough that brings up blood. "You think killing me changes anything? You think this ends here?" "I think some kinds of justice don't come from badges or courts," Jake says quietly, stepping up beside Rose. "I think some kinds of justice can only come from the people who've been hurt, who've lost everything, who refuse to stay silent anymore." Rose stands up and looks down at the dying man who gave her life and destroyed everything she ever loved. "The well remembers, Sheriff. It remembers everybody you threw down there, every life you took, every lie you told, and now everyone else will remember too." Brennan tries to say something else, but the words turn to blood in his throat. He pitches forward and lies still at the edge of the well, his blood seeping into the same ground where his victim's blood had spilled 20 years before. Rose picks up the journal that had fallen beside his body and holds it against her chest. It's over. Jake looks at her in the moonlight and sees someone completely transformed from the scared girl he had found by this same well just days before. Someone who had faced down her demons and emerged victorious, changed, but unbroken. What happens now? Rose looks down into the well one last time, then turns away. Now we go home, and we start telling the truth.